freedom really is the highest virtue. If you could just go anywhere, do anything, be anyone, if you were just so fluid that whatever circumstance you found yourself in, you could become the best thing for that circumstance. Like, I think that scares a lot of people to even think about because they identify so strongly with who they are, what they think they are. But I think you find that the personality changes a lot and sometimes in unexpected ways. And you don't necessarily have to identify with what you are just because that's what you are. Like, we are capable of the entire spectrum of personality. And like, if we would be better off having different personality traits in one social environment as opposed to the other, what's wrong with adopting those? Like, they exist in potentiality within us, I think.
Yeah, and it's like kids. I feel like kids are the masters at that. It seems like no one has any firm perception of who a kid is because they're so young and they're constantly changing. So because those kids aren't like inhibited, like no one around them has some idea of who they are, it feels like children come around and they're just different every time you see them. You know, they have a different personality. They're like acting in different ways, and society kind of like lets them get away with that until a certain age. And I think that's a powerful gift that children have that we kind of lose, you know.
Yeah, I think because kids are new to this world, they understand that nobody knows who they are. In many ways, they don't even know who they are. So yeah, like you said, they know they can get away with being different every time they come around. And it's because nobody expects anything of them that they feel that they can get away with that. But as an adult, there's so many people around that understand you to be a certain way based off of pattern recognition, and then you feel restricted to their perception of you. Like, if I go around a certain friend with a totally different energy or personality, then they'll notice that immediately and they'll think I'm being extra, or they think I'm like intentionally changing something. I feel like that's kind of scary to
Yeah,
some people. If you come around different every time, then they don't know they don't realize they realize they don't know who you are, pretty
yeah.
much. And you also don't want to realize that you don't know who you are.
Yeah, it's like in a way society conditions us, like other people's egos condition us to have an ego. It's like this giant like societal programming. Because I felt like when I was younger, because I was always feeling these different emotions and I was so like caught in the riptides, I didn't as much like have an ego or a self-pity. Like if I acted absolutely crazy one day and threw like some big fit and made like a giant mess of my life, I didn't feel like bound to that event that happened. Like within, a couple of days, I was just like, whatever, I'm a kid. I can, no one really is gonna hold it against me. But as an adult, you feel like you have to choose so carefully who you are and what you represent, you know?
Yeah, and we hold ourselves to such a high standard. It's almost like we hold grudges against ourselves, especially more than we hold grudges against other people. We just, I feel like people aren't very good at forgiving themselves because we feel like the world is demanding so much from us that we have to demand more from ourselves, and we're always just letting ourselves down. But then you find that you are your biggest hater. Like, you are putting the pressure on yourself, and that really affects your emotional state. Like, one thing that made me feel much more free, like other than getting rid of everything I own, is getting rid of all the past perceptions of myself. Like, allowing myself to finally be a new human being. And it definitely helps, like when we did something so drastic like traveling to a new place. It makes you feel like, okay, it's a new chapter. I can like allow myself to be brand new again. But I could have made that decision at any point in my life, to just give myself some space to make something new and not be bound to all the mistakes in my past. Like, when you learn to forgive yourself, you're kind of just like taking that weight off your shoulder. Like, there's really no need to hold a grudge against yourself, no matter how bad it was. Like, life is way too short to have any shame or guilt. like at the end of the day, learn the lesson and move on. And like God is not going to hold it against you for not shaming or guilting yourself. If anything, someone that loves you would want you to love yourself unconditionally.
For real, I find like it's strange that we only live in the moment, and we're bound to these memories, like this continuity, and we're almost like choosing to hold on to that. It's like some sunk cost, because it's like this is all I've been for my entire life, and so I'm going to continue this way and be held to my mistakes. I think everyone kind of like wants to like soft reset and forget it all happened, but it's like when I lost that $1,000 earlier this year, it felt like I had a really hard time like forgiving myself and just letting it go, because I'm like, well, I had that at one point, like I had that $1,000, and because of a mistake I made, I don't have that anymore. But then I just consoled myself by thinking like, well, I'm just in the present now, like I'm not even the one who did that. Like I woke up this morning and that's all I know. You know what I mean? Like for an animal, that's sort of the mode of existence they live in. We're just like prisoners of our past and our memories.
Yeah, gambling is a good example because money is so finite. You'll always be thinking about the money you've lost in dumb ways like that. But something like emotional energy, it's also finite because you don't live forever, but it's much more abundant. Like, yeah, you were probably more powerful before you like got addicted to meth for 10 years, and you could like hold yourself accountable for that and like hate yourself for the rest of your life. Or like when you get into recovery and you leave it behind, like you could just forgive yourself and move on and become even more powerful after you learn the lesson.
Yeah, it's like we live so long. It's sort of hard to see that in the moment because we get like tunnel vision, but if you genuinely could live like 90 years, then the fraction of time you've lived in is so small. And deciding to like carry around all these weights that you're burdening yourself with for all that time, like, is it really necessary? Like, is any mistake a big enough deal you're going to be thinking about it 60 years from now? Like, I doubt it.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that is that let's say somebody points out to you that you're not very tall, and now you're beating yourself up about it like all day because you just now realized that you're short. And so somebody made you feel bad, but now you are making you feel bad. You're making yourself feel bad. And what that does is you're using your own thoughts deliberately in order to make yourself feel negative emotions. And let's say 80 years later, you don't even remember that conversation that made you realize that you were short, but you still your entire life felt short and beat yourself up about it. So like the source of the whole problem is gone from you. It doesn't even exist in your awareness, but the reaction to that and the negative emotion to that lasted a lifetime. So it's like you might even like forget the source of the pain, but the pain stays with you. So it's really important like how you choose to react, and choosing to let things go could free you from like a lifetime of holding on to that burden. But let me give you a different example. Like let's say you messed up pretty bad. You like crashed into somebody and they like broke their arm because you were distracted on your phone driving or something like that. Like you did something wrong, and of course there's going to be a little bit of shame and guilt, but like you might not even really remember that happening. Like after like 60 years you might not even remember that happened, but that emotion, that shame and that guilt stays with you forever pretty much until you find it and release it. You'll like the second you feel ashamed of yourself and feel guilty of it, you may forget the memory, but the negative emotion like just still weighs on you.
Yeah, it's like in a way there aren't really problems, because problems are things that exist in the past. It's like all there really is circumstances, and then our judgments about those circumstances. Like if we only live in the present, in the right here and right now, then we should just focus on, in a way, things that we can start to work at and change, you know? If you are in debt, you have a ton of debt, you can work every day to alleviate that debt because it's something that, you know, is on top of you right now. But if it's just something that's gone and passed a long time ago, and you're thinking about this mistake you made and how you might be better off without that, you know, you're sort of just thinking about this problem that doesn't even exist in the moment anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like gambling away $1,000. Like, sure, you could be $1,000 richer, but I don't know, money comes and goes. Really, I feel like true wealth is your relationship with yourself. Because at the end of the day, your circumstances aren't what affect your emotional life. It's how you choose to react to your circumstances. So, happiness really is uh, based on the relationship you have with yourself. If you can allow yourself to feel happiness all the time, despite your circumstances, like there's definitely some homeless people that are happier than some billionaires. In fact, I feel like most billionaires probably aren't happy because they got everything they wanted in life and realized that they could have just been happy all along. And it actually doesn't matter what circumstances you're in. It's really just a matter of allowing yourself to feel happy.